Welcome back to Amplifying Our Voices. I'm your host, Patty Hayek. Thank you for being here. Today's episode features Eileen López Tomé. She shares how her identity, career, and faith were shaped long before breast cancer, and how that diagnosis became the turning point that led her to her true calling. Let's dive in. Buenos dias. Good morning, Eileen. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to have this conversation with you and have people learn about your story.
Buenos dias. How are you, Patty? It's great to be here. Thank you.
I like to start off with, where does your story begin?
Where does my story begin? There's so many possibilities. And I think the main beginning is when my parents came to the United States from Cuba in 1969. And my mom was pregnant with me. She was 8 months pregnant with me. She was able to get on the plane and leave the country, even though she was so far along, because there was a lot of scarcity in Cuba at the time. She'd had a high-risk pregnancy. She didn't look as far along as she was. I think that's really where my story as a first-gen eldest daughter Latina woman in the United States starts.
Is there anything from your childhood that stands out that shaped who you are today?
As soon as you asked the question, what popped into my mind was my mom. So again, my parents' story is not unique, but it is the story of immigrants in this country. My dad, I have, very early memories of my dad. When we came to this country, he had a day job and a night job to help, cover expenses. My mom, who had learned how to sew in Cuba, she was a seamstress and needed to be at home. What she did was sew. She would also sew day and night. One of my earliest memories is of being in this small apartment that my parents lived in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where we were resettled after being processed here in Miami. My mom being up late at night with her sewing machine, sewing, because she would go to like a factory and she would get piecework. She would sew the Greek letters on the back of the jerseys that sororities and fraternities at universities wore. And she would pick up a big pile, come to the house, and she'd sew all night so she could take it back the next morning, pick up another pile, because obviously the more pieces that she sewed, the more income she would earn. And I remember sitting under the sewing machine because it had like a little extension. I must have been tiny, but I remember that. I just remember sitting under there and hearing the bzz, bzz, the whirring of the sewing machine, and just my mom being up late and my dad being at work, and just that stress of recently arrived immigrants have of wanting to make ends meet and wanting to contribute. And so that is kind of like my earliest memory, and maybe my earliest example from my parents of first of all, family is everything, and we have to take care of our family. And then just working, being hard workers. It's probably where kind of my early overachieving identity was formed.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about your career journey, because I know you spent a lot of time. How many was it? Like 10 years, 20 years as a lawyer?
Let me start at the beginning. You're right. I went to college. And I wanted to study, believe it or not, I wanted to study theology. I wanted to work I was raised Catholic, and I wanted to go to a university and work in campus ministry and work with college kids about their faith and preserving their faith and growing in their faith. And I remember sitting down with my dad and saying, this is what I want to study in college. I want to study religion, basically. And he was like, as a career? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, how much money does that make? And I was like, well, I don't know. So it's like, how about, and again, this is a very, I think, like Hispanic Latino experience. How about you study business or something practical? So my dad had 3 girls, and he was a great girl dad. And one of the things that he wanted for us was that we become professionals and that we could have our independence. My parents also very much wanted us to be married and do the traditional thing. There was also this push for like education so that you don't have to rely on anyone. You can also be independent if you need to. And so there was this practical push to business. So I enrolled in accounting, because that's what my dad had been in Cuba, and what he ended up working here in finance and banking initially when he got here. I enrolled in accounting, but I'm not a math person. I'm a words person. So I took 1 semester of Accounting 101 and I was out. I shifted to marketing, finished my degree in marketing, graduated in the Job market was rough. Marketing major also did not make a lot of money right out of college. And so I took a year off to think about it. And then I did the thing that I had always heard people say about me when I was growing up. Eileen loves to argue. Eileen has an answer for everything. Eileen would be a good lawyer. I said, okay, let me try going to law school. It was hard. I had one child already when I started law school, and I got pregnant and had my second while in law school. And I finished and I practiced law for about 5 years. Right around the time I finished law school, I got divorced. I was a single mom. I was working in the nonprofit space, which I loved the work that I did there, but I wasn't earning a lot of money. I was working really long hours, and I had 2 littles. And thankfully, my mom and dad were there. Like in most Hispanic communities, we can rely on our families, thank God, and thank God for my parents because they helped me to raise my kids. I needed to make more money. And that's when I made the jump into federal government, where I've been for 27 years. I've never worked as a lawyer in the federal government. I've always maintained my law license, por si acaso, as my mother always used to say, just in case. I loved the law, and I'm grateful to my parents for pushing me to get a law degree and to have something practical to fall back on, because it certainly helped facilitate me getting a job in the federal government, and I think has helped me get promoted over the years. But that's also not what I feel was my calling, was to be a lawyer. But that felt selfish at the time. It feels selfish to ask yourself, after seeing your parents work so hard and to put you through school and making sacrifices, for you to be like, but what's my calling?
Right.
Because it feels, for many years, it felt like my calling was to be married, have kids, and have a good career, be able to support myself and my family, be able to make my parents proud, which they always have been very proud of me. But so that's kind of my winding story about being a lawyer and having a law degree. It's not something that, looking back, I would choose again necessarily, but I'm so grateful to have it, because that knowledge and that experience, nobody can take that from me. And it has served me really well professionally and personally to have that.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Now, talk to me a little bit about the consulting days in the government. What were you doing? Because I think it's very unique, and how it kind of set you up for what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I started working for the government, like I said, 27 years ago. I still do work full time, for the government. At this stage, I'm more towards the end of my career, looking at retirement, like 3 to 5 years on the horizon. But around the same time that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was working with a coach in government. I had just been promoted to this really big position, my first big position in government. I was not struggling, but I was, of course, want to be the best and be perfect and do my job well. And I had the opportunity to work with a coach for the first time ever. She was so helpful. Even then, I remember thinking, this is something I really love and would really love to do, is to be a coach. Then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. One of the first people that I turned to after my diagnosis was my coach. Even though she was my, career coach, I went to her and she coached me through that, especially the early days, that overwhelming feeling of what's happening, what's going to happen? Am I going to live? What's going to happen with my kids? I had a 3-year-old at the time. I was a little angry at God, thinking, really? You sent me a 3-year-old, you sent me a baby late in life, and I have 4 other kids, and I have this career, and I have a husband, and I have a family and a beautiful community. What's happening here? What? Coaching is not therapy, and I also had a therapist separate from that, but she really helped me navigate, and kind of was one of the first people that helped me look to the future and feel like a sense of hope about once I get through this, there is still a future and there are still things that I want to do, and helped me to be more clear about is this really my calling? Is this, again, a return to that question of what's my calling? And then when I finished treatment, I started a coaching program. And I became a coach. Within a year, the program was about a year long. I became a certified professional coach. And I started coaching in the government. That's not my full-time job. We have a group of coaches that are in all different positions in all different parts of the government, that they formed a group. And so we offer our services within this program to other federal employees. I love it. And I, on the side, have also coached for years now, but I've also offered my coaching services to cancer survivors and others, like not just cancer survivors. In December, I was looking at this year, 2026, and I was thinking, wow, this year will be 10 years since my diagnosis, which is a huge milestone. And again, I keep coming back to the question, like, what do I want to do? What's my purpose? What more is there? I just recommitted myself to coaching cancer survivors. I found Courage Driven Latina, the group that we're both in with Erica Cruz. I'd been in other groups and taken other courses over the years, but that piece of identity that I didn't realize was missing really called to me. In government, I do career coaching and leadership coaching, and I work mostly with employees who are making a transition. They've just been promoted or they're about to be promoted. And then in my private practice, which I established just a few months ago, I am looking to dedicate myself to cancer survivors, to coaching them through that. I hate to use the word journey because we use it so much, but it is a journey through that journey, just like I was coached, so many years ago. I want to pay it forward.
That's beautiful. And you have a podcast too.
Yes.
That's for breast cancer survivors. I love that. I've been
Yes.
here tuning in and
Thank you.
you're adding so much value. That lived
Thank you.
experience that helps, someone that's navigated through that already. I want to talk a little bit about who were you before cancer? What do you want people to know about you,
That's
that
such a great
version of you?
question. Yeah, that's such a great question. Before cancer, I was maybe a typical like eldest daughter, first generation, Latina mom. I've always been really, I want to say career driven, but I feel like that doesn't really encompass it. Like I love work. I love what I do. I love service, being of service. I take my work very seriously. Primarily, what I love about my work is building teams and then leading them, to success and seeing all the different parts of a team and the different people in a team like come together and grow themselves. I love to see members of my team move on and to bigger and better things. And so before I was diagnosed, I was this really driven by work. I had just been promoted to a chief of staff position, which it's a pretty big position, not because it's important, but because of the because of how much work, how many different things a chief of staff is in charge of. I thought I had to do it all. I was responsible for all the success at work. If anything went wrong, it was on me. I was responsible for a team of people, a big team of people. At home, I was responsible at the time that I, was promoted to this position, 4 kids. But right in the middle of that, I got unexpectedly pregnant, and we had our youngest, Daniel, who has been a huge blessing for us. But it doesn't matter. I was still working, and work was like you started working before you got to the office, and you did. Even after I got home and I was making dinner, I was often working. They're talking to my boss or, taking a phone call or whatever had to be done. I was really a workaholic, a perfectionist. I felt like I had to do it all. I had to hold it all together. All the priorities in my personal life and in my professional life were mine to deal with and mine to manage. I had plenty of help. It's not that I was doing it all by myself. I had my parents, my sisters-in-law. I mean, thankfully I live close to my immediate family and my husband's immediate family. But in my head, I thought like the success or failure of my kids, my home, my marriage, my job stood on me. And asking for help felt like, no, like I have to do this. And I talk about this in a recent podcast episode that I recorded. It wasn't until not too long ago that I learned the term mental load. Because for years I felt a lot of shame about how inside, like how anxious and overwhelmed I felt. Like, why can't I do this? Why can't I handle this? Like, Eileen, ponte fuerte. Like, you have to handle this. I realized I was handling all the things, but it's the mental load of all the responsibilities that you have as a working mom that I didn't realize that I needed to ask for help, like to ask my husband, help me to manage all the things that I have to remember, all the things on my to-do list. And because of that big, long to-do list that I had, I put myself at the end, at the bottom. And so like with my breast cancer journey, I would go every year. I wasn't afraid of going to the doctor. I knew how important it was. I would go every year to the doctor, and I did get several mammograms year after year. And then after I had my youngest, I was breastfeeding him, had so many different things to deal with. I stopped going to get my mammograms, not because I didn't know they weren't important or because I was afraid. I kept putting it at the bottom of my list. I don't have
Right.
time to make an appointment right now. I don't have time to go get a mammogram. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. And next week became next month, became next year, became 4 years. And not that mammograms prevent breast cancer, but if I'd been getting them regularly, I certainly would have been diagnosed earlier, sooner, and I wouldn't have had to experience as invasive treatment as I did. And by the way, like when cancer came knocking, a situation like that, whether it's cancer or some other health emergency, it doesn't care if you've got 5 kids or 1 kid or no kids, or if you've got a long to-do list, or if you have an important position at work or you don't have, it's like everything has to stop. That was the turning point for me in many ways, from who I was before to who I became, and I'm still becoming, because by the way, I'm still learning those lessons. I'm still a recovering workaholic. I'm still a recovering perfectionist. I still have to catch myself in those thoughts of like, I have to do this, or I have to work 12 hours a day. Otherwise, am I even really working? I still have to remind myself that that is not required or necessary.
Right, I bet. Oh, I can imagine. I don't know, why do we do that to ourselves? I don't know if it's a woman thing, is it a
Yeah.
Latina thing, but we have this amazing network of people that love us and support us, and they always say, right, "Hey, let me know if you need anything," and they're there. We know they will help if we need it, but just why is asking for help so hard?
It's a good question. And I think I love that you said, is it a woman thing? Is it a Latina thing? I do think it's a woman thing. And then the Latina piece, the culture is an added layer, right? On top of it, maybe because of our parents' immigrant experience, maybe
Right.
because of what we observed, how I observed my mom growing up. My mom never worked outside of the home, but she worked. She sewed, did that seamstress work for many years, and she babysat kids for many years. So she was taking care of us and the house and being in that role of
Mhm.
housewife and stay-at-home mom. And she was bringing in income and with work that wasn't visible, right? Because she wasn't going out to an office. And so I don't know. I think it's a great question. It's definitely something that maybe we observe and we learn, and that's passed on to us. And then at least for me, let me speak for myself. I feel like I was born wired with you can have it all, you can do it all. And then just the culture just reinforced that for me somehow. And yeah, I think we can have it all. It's just what I learned is you can't necessarily have it all at the same time. You have to prioritize and you have to make choices. But such a great question. I'm not sure the root of it, but something that I explore with my clients all the time. Where does this come from and how is it serving you? That's a question that I had to ask myself at one point. How is this even serving me? I have sisters, sisters-in-law, mother, in-laws, community, friends, so many people who have helped me raise my children and helped me to take care of them and help me along. But there was still this pressure of I have to be the primary one. I have to be the one that ultimately takes care of all this and arranges everything and is making sure that all the homework is getting done and the kids have multiple after school activities and that they're going to them and that I'm meeting my obligations at work and going above and beyond and that everybody and everything is being taken care of. And then the result was that I wasn't taking care of myself. Not because anybody told me that. That
Right.
was, like you said, it was just something that I felt like if I had put myself at the top of the list, how selfish is that? There's that thing too about selfishness that we have to be selfless to the point of like, you know, almost giving up our lives. I think is the kind of stereotype of the good mother, and I think especially in our culture, in the Hispanic and Latino culture,
Like you said, we're still learning, right?
we're
It's
still learning.
it's
It is.
and it's work that
It
we
is.
continue to
Yes.
work on.
Yes.
Can you take us back to that moment when you first heard the words, "You have breast cancer"?
I found the lump in my breast myself, and I remember feeling it and thinking, I don't remember this being here before. It was like the middle of the night, and I waited until the morning to wake up my husband and say, I found this. I don't think this is good. He's like, oh, it's probably nothing. Don't. But from the beginning, I just knew that, there was like an invader in my body. Went to not too long after that, was able to get in to see my gynecologist, who then got me in for a biopsy right away. Well, first I had an ultrasound, a mammogram and an ultrasound. And I'll never forget, even in the ultrasound, the tech was very stoic. I cried the whole time, and she was very stoic, but she kept asking me, when was the last time you had a mammogram? When was the last time? Have you ever had an ultrasound? You have very dense breasts. And so I just, again, knew it wasn't great. Then the radiologist that same day looked at the results of the ultrasound and said, you need to have a biopsy. Got in for a biopsy, had the biopsy, and within a week I had the results. I was at lunch with a coworker. Her name's Yaseda, and I have to shout out her name because she's not just a coworker, but a dear friend. And I'm so grateful to this day that it was her that I was with when I got the call from my gynecologist. And I went out to the car. I told her, she knew like that I was expecting a call. And I said, I'm going to go out to the car to take this. And yeah. My gynecologist said to me, I'm so sorry. The biopsy came back positive for cancer, for breast cancer. I don't remember much of what he said after that. I went back into the restaurant. I told my friend, she hugged me. I called my boss and I told him, I think I told him, hey, I just got this news and I'm going home. Like, I need to go home. And I called my husband and he went straight home. It's so funny that the first person I called was my boss, right? It's like, I'm not coming back to the office because I've got breast cancer, but don't worry. I do remember that. So-and-so is going to cover this meeting and so-and-so is going to cover that meeting, making sure that everything's covered at work before I could go home. Those first thoughts, those first were just, I was terrified. What's going to happen? What does this mean? So many questions that you don't get the answers to until you meet with an oncologist. And I didn't even have an oncologist at the time. Then thankfully, so many people came together to help me get in to see someone pretty quickly. But until then, it was just, and from that moment forward, it was just a jumble of thoughts. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I did go online and consult Dr. Google with the little bit that I could remember that my gynecologist had told me. That was terrifying. Do not recommend. I always tell my clients, if I'm talking to them soon after their diagnosis, or even if not, because once you're a survivor, once you're diagnosed, you automatically become a survivor. And through your entire survivorship, things come up and your temptation is to go to the internet and be like, I have this symptom, or I found this bump on my knee, or this is happening. Could it be breast cancer coming back? I always tell my clients, please don't. And now we have AI. Don't talk to Claude. Don't talk to ChatGPT. Don't talk to Google. Reach out to a doctor, a real doctor, if you're worried about something. Yeah, I think my first thoughts were for work, family, my kids. And then like a distant third probably was me, like thinking about what did this mean for me? And even then, I was still thinking logistics. Who's going to take the kids to school? Who's going to pick up the kids to school if I'm in treatment? What about dinner? What about all these things that the community stepped in beautifully. My family, my community stepped in beautifully and helped with it all. But yeah, even then, I was like, what about everything and everybody else?
Right.
Yeah.
That was your natural go-to, right? Thinking
Yes.
about everybody else and how's
Yes.
this going to get done.
Yes.
Can you tell me what was the hardest part of treatment for you, whether if that was physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of
Yeah, that's a great question. The hardest part of treatment for me, well, there were like a few along the way. I think the first hardest part was losing my hair. And once I knew that I was going to have chemo and the type of chemo I was going to have, and the cancer center that I was treated at did a great job of preparing me and telling me this is the type of chemo you're going to have. This is what that means, like the side effects. One of them is you're going to lose your hair. I had long, thick, really great hair. Moment for my hair. I went to the hairdresser and I said, cut it. So the first thing I did was cut my hair short. And then after the first chemo, my hair started to already in the shower. I could pull out bunches of it. And I said, oh no, I'm not going to just lose my hair like this. Very in control. I went back to my hairdresser and I said, shave it off. So just like 1 month into treatment, I shaved my hair off. And that was hard. It was also a pivotal moment and in good ways. But at that moment, it was as from an identity standpoint. Again, I had had short hair before. And anytime I cut my hair short, I heard from all my family members, ay, pero like, ¿por qué? Like, short hair, it's not feminine, and long, there's that strong, like, cultural, like, long hair, Latina long hair identity in my family, especially my sisters have beautiful long curly hair. My sisters-in-law have long hair. So there was that challenge to my identity right away. That was very hard. I had always had long hair. I'd always loved my hair. It was a big part of my identity. With respect to my faith, this wasn't like the first difficult thing. It's the most difficult thing I'd ever had to face, but not the first difficult thing I'd ever had to face. And what I love about my faith and my belief is that I can get mad at God and God can handle that. I've always felt that. I haven't always been going to church or consistently or agreeing with everything that the church teaches, but I've never lost my faith in God. And even when I'm mad, even when I'm upset or disappointed or wondering why is this happening to me, I have just always felt that God is big enough to handle all of that and to just give me the space to be. I never doubted or lost my faith, but I was really upset at the beginning at God. It was, why have you given me such a beautiful family and life and all the things that you've given me just to like possibly take it away? So that was part of my journey. It was really hard, but there were always little, I call them God winks or God incidences or little things that, signs that I felt like I was not walking that journey alone from a faith perspective. And then I think the final hardest thing for me was part of my treatment was a double mastectomy. And I had breastfed 4 of my 5 kids. That was a big part of my identity. I was a breastfeeding mama. I'm like complicated that way. I have this like corporate side of me, and then I have this like earth mother side of me, like organic. I was very pro breastfeeding. I mean, I still am. I also bottle fed one of my kids. So I'm not evangelical about it, but for me, that was very important. And so it was hard to lose my breasts, and nobody prepared me for that. Because especially when you're in the middle of breast cancer, for me at least, it was like, take them off. If this, I don't want my breasts to kill me. Like if there's a chance that there could be a recurrence, mastectomy, absolutely. And I had stage 3 breast cancer, so it was pretty advanced. And I don't remember ever really, I mean, you have the option to not have that surgery, but I don't think that was advisable. It was like, you should probably have the mastectomy. So, but nobody really prepares you for losing your breasts. And I remember before being diagnosed saying things in conversations with other women, like when we would hear that someone had been diagnosed with breast cancer, I was like, that's terrible. Oh, but now she gets a boob job, or, oh, now she gets new boobs. And I had that thought myself. And no, that's not at all what it's like. Losing your breasts, again, as a woman, a mom, as a Latina woman, again, it's like literally cutting off a piece of your identity. And there was no place for me to process that before or during that experience. And then after, you're just like, I need to heal. Have touched on this in therapy. I very much support and promote and believe in the power of counseling and therapy, and with my coach as well. Eventually I got to that place where I could talk about this and not break down and really process it. But I think those were like the 3 moments for me. It was when I lost my hair in my faith journey, when I was really mad and asking why. And then when I had my mastectomy. Those were 3 really like back-to-back strong shocks to my identity as a Latina woman of faith, really.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's intense. It's a lot happening
It is.
so fast to your body, and can't even process one thing because the next thing is coming up. And it's
Such a good point. And thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. It's so important to ask a survivor about their truth, right? And their story. And that's such a great question that you ask, because I was guilty of this too before I became a survivor. We assume that we know, or I think it's a self-protection mechanism. Like we don't want to think about that happening to us or to someone that we love. And so we tend to make light of it or not really go deep. And that is such a great point that you just made. Everything is happening, and it's happening so fast, and you just want to survive.
right.
So important and in the middle of all that, really hard to just pause. I have a great husband, a wonderful husband and partner who helped me to think about like what questions needed to be asked. I remember going onto the American Cancer Society website, which I always mention. I can't say enough how helpful it was because they have a lot of resources about like, okay, here's a list of questions that you might want to ask your oncologist, your surgeon about your treatment and about surgery. And so I had all those resources, but those are like intellectual things, right, that you approach. What's moving equally fast is all the emotions and all the changes and all of the drastic changes that you're experiencing. So thank you for asking and for creating a space here where I can share that.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a little bit about your husband. So I want to talk a little bit about like the relationships. Did any relationship shift? Did anything surprise you on how maybe people showed up?
Yeah, all of it, well, most of it in good ways, I will say. All my close relationships just became closer and stronger. And that, like, my family's response, including my husband's, was not surprising. Everyone was very supportive and stepped in. This was 10 years ago. My husband was still kind of mid-career. He works in corporate. The FaceTime thing is really important, really hard to take time away. My sisters-in-law, friends all showed up. He accompanied me to a few chemo sessions, and then there was always someone. The ones that he couldn't go to, there was always someone there to fill in for him. And I hate to say that that surprised me because the people that showed up are people that loved me. I had always put myself in the position of being the one to help and the one that you could reach out to anything you need. I'll be there for you. I had never been in that receiving position. And so that surprised me. The relationship with my husband, we were like 10 years, I want to say a little bit more than 10 years. That was what, 2016. So a little bit more than 10 years, about 16 years into our marriage. But, we had 5 kids. Life was like chaos. He was working like this really intense corporate job, and I was working in government, and it was, for all intents and purposes, like a corporate job. And we were just kind of like two ships in the night, which I think is very normal for the stage that we were at in life with kids and all that. And it really brought us much closer together. And a lot of the noise just dropped away. Like right away, the things that are really important you focus really closely and clearly on that. And for us, our marriage, we've always had a strong foundation. Like every marriage, we have ups and downs. We were probably going through a little bit of a down at that point. And again, because of all the stress and work and kids and activities, and that just all dropped away. And it's like we closed ranks. I love to say we closed ranks. We circled the wagons around our families. He circled the wagons around me, which is so important. He helped to protect my peace. He helped to manage who got to come in and have access and who didn't. Because I will tell you, there were some people, not super close friends, but the things that they said weren't very helpful, or they didn't, they got a little distant. And I understand that because it's hard for some people to be close to things that, hard things like this, and to be faced with mortality when you have cancer. But those were very few. The majority of my relationships, my community, the school that my son was at and still is at, all of my 5 kids have gone to that school. My nephews and nieces went to that school. And so they showed up. People would show up in the middle of the day sometimes with food, just knock on the door. I have dinner for you today. My sister organized a meal train, but even outside of that, and long after I was finished with treatment, people kept knocking on the door, praying for me and checking on me. And my next door neighbor, right after surgery, she came over and she brought all these like groceries, and she's like, I didn't know what you needed, so I just brought everything. And I'm getting goosebumps as I'm remembering this because it was just such a really like amazing time for community and family. I always knew that family mattered, big important value for me and my husband. But they really, at this time, it's like any kind of like conflict or anything that may have existed in my immediate family just really dropped away. You just realize, like, why are we being silly? Why are we arguing about this, or what is this about? Or no, what's important here is that you get well, and we're here to support that. It's a good question maybe to ask my husband as a caretaker. He took on a lot, and I think he realized how much I had on my plate. It was hard for him, and there's not enough conversation about how hard it is for the caretaker, whether it's your spouse or a parent or a partner. But in that moment, he didn't allow me to see any stress that he may have been feeling. Like, he shielded me from that, and really just focused on making sure that I had everything I need to get better and to rest. And that was huge. Super blessed and super privileged to have that kind of support from my partner and from my kid. I had adult kids at the time. They stepped in to help with their younger siblings. Friends of my husband's came and took the kids out. Two friends of my husband's came over one weekend and took them out. I think they took them to the zoo, like just so that they could have a break from everything that was
Right.
happening at home. So yeah, I can't complain. I had a wonderful experience with family and community. Very lucky.
What a blessing to have those people in your life and
Yes,
really show up and pour love into you and
yes,
ensuring that you had everything that you needed.
yes, yes, it
Did
was.
you did you ever feel any pressure to stay positive or and you know how some people like to, they mean
Yep,
well, but they
yes.
give bad advice, anything that like
I
that showed up?
love that question. So I like to say that I am generally an upbeat person, or that I always try to imagine um, the best possible outcome. The toxic positivity thing, there was a good number of people who did pressure me within the family and outside the family. Oh, it could be worse. Look at the bright side. You've got the best medical care. Well intended. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Just stay positive. Like, stay positive. It's important to stay positive. And it is important. It is important to be aware of your thoughts and try. We know this. There's evidence that like our thoughts can physically impact us. They have a physical impact on us, whether they're negative or positive thoughts. But there's a fine line. After the first or second chemo treatment, I had a really bad reaction. I got very nauseous and with the throwing up and all that. And I started my chemo journey wanting to be all like, okay, there's all these chemicals going into my body. I'm going to take as few medications as possible. So I refused the anti-nausea medication. And I was like, I'm just going to use ginger candy and ginger tea, and which is valid. And it's definitely a tool and it helps. But it wasn't strong enough for that first treatment, I think, as it hit my body. And it was terrible. I was like, my husband had to take the kids out of the house. So I was just reacting very badly, physically and emotionally. And I remember some people coming over and being like, you could like, no, you got to get up. You got to be strong. I was like, I'm literally throwing up and like feeling awful. I can't be strong and positive right now. And I know that comes from a good place. And it's also people wanting to manage their own emotions, right? Like people get
Mhm.
scared when they see you like that, and so they want to stay positive. And, it's a great question, and it's something that we have to be mindful of when we're in the universe of someone who's sick, whether it's cancer or something else, chronic or even just a temporary. It's important to help them protect their peace and not to bring up negative topics or things that might bring them down. But it's also important to just give them the space to feel bad, sad, mad, sick. It's all normal. And it was a challenge for me because it's the first time that I couldn't just smile and think a positive thought and be like, okay, this is all going to be okay. Because it was just too deep and too much and too long of a path of treatment and all that. And at the end of it was facing my mortality. Because I don't care what stage you're at when you get diagnosed with cancer. That's another thing. Like, well, what stage? And then in their mind, I can see them making the mental calculation. Like, is she going to live? Is she going to die? I had somebody tell me, at least it wasn't stage 4. At least it wasn't metastatic. I was like, okay, I really would have rather not have had any cancer. But okay, I guess that's the bright side. It doesn't matter, I think, whether you get diagnosed at stage 1 or stage 4. When you hear you have cancer, I really think at some point, if not the first point, is, am I going to die? Cancer is a big word. And so, yeah, it's complicated when even doctors, like I had, not in the oncology world, but in the non-oncology world, I had a doctor tell me, stay positive. And it's so great that you're so positive. Because again, generally I'm like a smiley kind of upbeat person. And people mistake that for positivity because they don't know what's going on in my brain. But in that moment, not helpful to say like, stay positive. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to stay positive? What does that even mean?
Right.
I am trying to believe that everything is going to be okay and that the treatment is going to work and that my doctors are taking good care of me because I think that's important. But I am feeling sick. I've lost my hair. I can't be the mom and the wife and the employee that I want to be and that I'm used to being right now. Like, what do you mean stay positive? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
So
I
help
know.
me. Give me an example. What does that mean? I was doing things for my mental health. I was exercising. I was trying to feed my body and with good nutrition and all that. But like, that's different than saying to someone, Be positive.
Right.
Okay.
I
I'll
know.
watch a
I
Mary
think
Poppins movie, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, like I said, I know people mean well, and
Yes.
I think you're right where it's because they're feeling uncomfortable in that moment or they
Yes.
don't know or maybe they want to solve something for you or they're just trying to
Yes.
be helpful, but I think what we
Yes.
forget is we're so quick we're to rush to that
Yes.
problem solving. Let's
Yes.
sit in those uncomfortable feelings for a second and just sit next to the person and just give
Yes.
them some empathy with what
Yes.
they're going through because
Yes.
no one will know what it's like unless you are going through it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Just give space for the person. Just sit with them. That is such great advice. And even for myself, for people going through it, I had to just sit with myself. I had been moving so fast in my life before cancer and going from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, which is another thing that cancer forced me to do is slow down, be still, and be alone with my thoughts. I mean, there was a lot of growth that happened for me with cancer. I would have preferred not to have had cancer be the vehicle for that. Like, not trying to say, oh, well, the bright side of cancer is that I grew so much and I learned so much. No, I think I would have grown anyway. Having said that, there was a lot of growth that happened. And one of the things was what you just said was just for me personally, just sitting with my emotions and not trying to not only not trying to ignore or distract myself from what I was feeling, from what my worries and my fears, but also not I just had no energy to do that for other people, right? Because
Yeah.
I've done that and I still do it sometimes where I try to manage the energy in the room. There's conflict. Let me try to, as we say in Spanish, alimar pereza, I think it is. Like, let me try to smooth everything out. And I just didn't have the energy for that when I was going through treatment. I welcome you to be here, but this is it. Bald, throwing up, not feeling great, not looking great, tired, sleepy. This is who you're going to be sitting with. And I don't have the energy to pretend for you, like to make you
Right.
comfortable. And so that's where I say, like, the people that needed that, like, they didn't come around a lot because I just couldn't entertain that. If you wanted to come and be in my space, you had to meet me where I was at. I could not be there to comfort you. And not too many people, I have to say, showed up that way, but there were a few. And again, my husband and my family did a great job of like running interference with
Mm.
those people, but most people were just present. And that's what you need when you're going through something like that. Just be here with me. Don't tell me how to feel or how to think or that everything's going to be okay. No, I just need you to just sit with me in this reality. And
Do
that's the
you
most
have
comforting thing.
any advice for people that maybe want to help and don't know how
Yeah, that's
or
a great
practical things
question.
that they can do
Yeah, I mean, I
other
think
than emotional
one of
support?
the one piece of advice is like reach out to the caretaker, like who's the person primarily responsible for the patient or the survivor. Is it a husband, a parent, a friend, a spouse, a partner, a wife? Reach out to them and asking the question, how can I help is good and it's important. I don't want to discourage that. If you can come with a specific offer, let me make dinner for you and your family next week or next Monday, or let me pick up the kids from school. Let me get the groceries for you. Let me come and stay, with your wife so that you can go out with the kids or you can go for a walk. Coming with like specific way, because especially for the caretaker, right? If you say, how can I help? It's like in their head, they're going to be like, wow, like 10,000 things are going to come to mind. And
Right.
it's also a little like you feel pena, like even though you need the help, when somebody says, how can I help? It puts the burden on you to say, I need this, which can be hard. Certainly
Mhm.
was hard for me. It was hard for my husband. So that's like the biggest piece of advice that I have is come with a specific offer, like not, hey, if you need anything, just call me. Go, here I am. And here's how I want to help you. And that happened a lot. And we always said yes. Even if we had food already in the fridge, then we would freeze it if somebody came with food, because that was a big thing. I lost a lot of weight on chemo, and it's a struggle for people who are undergoing chemo, often for them to keep the weight on, to consume calories because you don't feel well. And so you can never bring too much food over to someone who's going through chemo. They may not be able to hold it all down, and it may not always be the thing that they need the most. For me, that's another piece of advice. Like, Sopa de pollo always comes in handy. So if you have a great like chicken soup recipe, or you know of a place that has makes a great chicken soup, I can't tell you how much chicken soup I froze. And then on days where I just literally couldn't chew because it was like, ugh, I can't even chew this, I would just heat up the chicken soup and drink the broth. And that's nutrition. And it was something that I was able to keep down. So even as something as simple as chicken soup, you think, like, why? Like, why would I offer somebody who's going through chemo chicken soup? No. And there's never too much of it. You can freeze it, even if you have people bring gallons over. And that's what we did. The other piece of advice I think I have for like friends and coworkers and things, like, especially if you're close to the person who's just been diagnosed, don't ghost them. That is another thing that happens because of what we just said, that people feel uncomfortable. Maybe for them, it's hard to confront somebody going through cancer, and it makes them think about their own mortality or whatever. And so sometimes people, ghost you, like they don't check in, or they don't think you're being a burden. I had some people tell, oh, like, I haven't texted you because I don't want to bother you. It's like, no, you're not bothering me. It's very, very lonely. As much as people as I had around me at all times, and people who came to help and family and all that, it's really lonely because nobody else can go through it but you, right? And so, no, it's not bothering me. If you want to text me, send me an inspirational message, send me a little prayer, send me whatever. I'm thinking of you. I think that's super helpful. And if you can't cook or you can't offer any other type of help, that checking in. I had a friend in DC who sent me a card every day I was in chemo. Every week I was in chemo, she sent me a card. And I was just looking through my cancer box the other day, and I came across all her cards, and it was there were these beautiful cards that had beautiful artwork. It wasn't even like everything's going to be okay. It wasn't like that. Beautiful cards to look at, and then she would always write an inspiring quote or message or a personal message inside. Because she was in DC and she couldn't be here in person to support me in the ways that other people, but she found a way to support me. And 10 years later, I still have those cards, and I still look at them periodically. And I remember at the time looking forward to, once I realized she was sending them to me every week, I would look forward. I would say to my husband, has Jennifer's card arrived yet? Has Jennifer's card arrived yet? So I hope that's helpful. There's simple little things. Sometimes we want to do big gestures to help people that are going through difficult things. And often it's just like the little thoughtful gestures that make the most impact.
That's beautiful. Angels on earth is what I call them. Types of people.
100%.
Okay, talk to me about life after cancer. What do you want people to know about life after cancer? Because I know there's a lot of people, or maybe a misconception of, okay, you're done with chemo, that's it, you're healed, you're better. It's not the case. So anything that you want people to know?
Yes. Again, love this question. And I think we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. You said something that I'm so grateful that you are tuned into that. Cancer is not your whole story. It's not your whole identity. And in some ways it is. So it's both. I didn't and don't want cancer to be my whole identity, or for like survivorship to be my whole identity. And yet it's like many ways formed who I am today. And at the same time, I remember like when I was done with treatment, everybody was like, okay, you're good now? Like, good. I'm back at work, and everybody welcomed me. They made signs for me. We celebrated my return. But then there's a point where everybody just wants you to be back to normal. Even I wanted to be back to normal. You just want things to go back to normal, whatever that means. And you're never going to go back to normal because you've just been through this really traumatic experience. You've stared death in the face. And now it's like, okay, Eileen's back to work, back at home, back to school. I want people to know that there's nothing normal about the person that you love, or the neighbor, or the coworker, or the friend who's just been through cancer. There's like nothing, there's a completely new normal that you're often trying to figure out. In some ways, it's like when you become a mom, right? It's like you get pregnant, you have the baby, you go on maternity leave, and then after maternity leave, you go back to work. And it's like, okay, you're back, like pick up where you left off. And especially when you become a mom for the first time, your identity is like, you have a whole new identity. You're not only are you exhausted, but you're still trying to figure out, who am I now that I'm a mom and I have a baby, and this baby needs me like 24/7. And in many ways, it's like that. It's like you're back, and people just want you to be back to normal, and you just want to be back to normal. But everything is different. Everything has changed, and you're just trying to figure it out. And you may have the same values, but there may be some new values that have arisen for you. Like for me, I still valued work and still to this day identify very strongly with work. I'm very proud of the work that I do and I love working. And yet I had to find a way to make room for not work, especially when I wasn't at work. I had to learn how to, okay, I'm not going to constantly be looking at my phone. Like I have an obligation to look at my phone a certain number of times in case there's an emergency and all that, but I'm not going to be on 24/7. I'm going to be more intentional about not just the things that I consume, like take into my body, but I want to be more intentional about the things that I allow into my brain. So there are things that, a lot of things that I had to unlearn about faith and feminism and racism and being a white Hispanic woman in the US today, things that I had never really paid much attention to, but that because I learned so much about how difficult it is for women of color to navigate the same exact medical system that I was navigating with ease and privilege, those things changed for me. And when those conversations came up, it became a little harder in my friend group or in my community group. So even things like that, like even the way you think about things, the way you look at the world, the experience that you have changes you fundamentally. I mean, it has to. So as a friend or a coworker, a neighbor, a family member of somebody who goes through cancer, I think it's important to remember they're not normal. They're not back to normal. They're navigating a lot of change and they're still processing their experience. Important to just make space for that and to know that. And it doesn't mean that they're worse, or because that's the other thing, the pressure to come back after chemo and have a little bit of that chemo foggy brain. There's a lot of pressure that I put on myself to perform. And yeah, not only can I not perform, I don't want to perform anymore. This isn't about performing life. This is about living life, right? And showing up the best way I can every day and making space for others to show up in the best way that they can every day. And just having tons of grace for myself and for others and really seeing the world for what it is and for the challenges that so many people face and wanting to like make a difference, there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I have so many more questions and I know we're running out of time. Okay. Let's end it on this one. What would you tell someone who just received their diagnosis today?
Question. I think I would tell them to slow down, like really slow down. All the questions. There's no stupid question when it comes to, the treatment for cancer is still really invasive, especially if it's advanced. It's really invasive and really life-changing. So yeah, make sure that you ask every question that's in your head. There's no stupid question. And to my Latina first gen, whether you're the eldest or not, sisters out there, I would say lean on people, lean on your community, lean on your family, lean on your friends, on your chosen family, your biological family, whatever your reality is. People want to help you. And there are a lot of resources out there, a lot of resources, even if you don't, you don't have insurance, if you don't kind of have the financial resources that you need, there's a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. Even if you do have insurance, ask for help, whether it's, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual. So many people want to help and take care of yourself. Maybe you've never stopped long enough or never thought that you were important enough to put yourself at the top of your to-do list, especially when it comes to your health. You are important. You do matter. Your health matters. Take care of yourself and ask for help. Ask for whatever help you need. Accept that. And if you can't ask for help, accept the help. Because I remember that was a challenge for me. Initially, I wasn't asking for the help and people were offering help. At the very beginning, I was like, oh no, I would tell my husband, no, we don't need people to cook for us. Like, even if I can't cook, we could just order food. No, accept the help. People want to help. People want to be there for you. And yeah, take care of yourself. Everything is going to be okay, but you got to take care of yourself and you got to let other people take care of you too.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Eileen. Thank
Thank
you again
you.
so much for spending some time with me and talking about your story. I am so proud of you. I love to
Thank
see
you.
you shining and
Thanks.
living your purpose and sharing
Thank you.
your story that I know will help a lot of other people. So again,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you for creating this space. It's been so wonderful to spend time with you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share this with someone who might need it. Stay tuned for the next one.